Moon landing faked. Alright, let's dive into one of history's wildest conspiracy theories, the idea that NASA faked the moon landing. Yep, some folks believe that in 1969, instead of bouncing around in low gravity, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin were actually skipping across a Hollywood set. Now here's the kicker. 6% to 28% of people, depending on which poll you check, still think it was staged. That's a lot of doubters, and honestly, who can blame them? I mean, have you ever tried to take a decent photo in your backyard at night, and yet NASA somehow nailed crystal clear images on the moon? Suspicious. Maybe. Enter Bill Kaysing, the OG moon landing skeptic. This guy, who had an English degree, not exactly rocket science, Bill, claimed that the odds of a successful landing were 0.0017%. Basically, the same odds as a cat solving a Rubik's Cube. And let's not forget the Flat Earth Society, who went full Hollywood and claimed that Stanley Kubrick directed the whole thing, with Arthur C. Clarke writing the script. If that were true, at least the special effects would have been Oscar-worthy. But wait, why didn't the Soviets call NASA out? These were America's biggest rivals in the space race. They had tracking systems capable of monitoring objects 62 million miles away. And they still went, yeah, seems legit. Even their encyclopedias listed the moon landing as fact. If that's not proof, I don't know what is. And those famous proofs of a hoax? Vanishing crosshairs? Just overexposure. No stars? Blame the sun's glare. At the end of the day, keeping 400,000 people silent about a fake moon landing would be harder than teaching a toddler to keep a secret. Earth is flat. So, let's talk about the Flat Earth movement, a conspiracy theory that's not just surviving, but thriving like a bad reality show you can't stop watching. Meet David Weiss, a former believer in a round Earth, until he tried to find proof of the curve and, well, didn't. Now, he's all in, convinced our planet is flatter than a pancake. His journey wasn't just an intellectual shift, it was an existential crisis. I absolutely freaked out, he says, because apparently realizing you might have been lied to about the shape of the Earth is the new midlife crisis. And he's not alone. Hundreds of flat earthers gathered at the Flat Earth International Conference. Yes, that's a real thing, where presentations like Space is Fake and Testing the Moon, a globe-wide perspective, were taken very, very seriously. Think TED Talk, but if Ted had a cousin who failed high school physics and made a YouTube channel about it. These believers don't just reject the round Earth. They reject everything that confirms it. NASA, liars, satellites, hoaxes, airplane flight paths, all part of the grand deception. The irony, they use GPS to get their conferences, which rely on, satellites orbiting around Earth. But here's the kicker. Flat earthers don't just distrust science. They suspect something darker. Many believe it's all part of a massive global cover-up. Why? That part's a little fuzzy. Control, money, the joy of watching people struggle to argue against them. Whatever the reason, one thing is clear. This movement isn't just about bad geography. It's about rejecting the establishment. So is Flat Earth just a quirky belief, or is it a symptom of something bigger? A deep distrust of authority, science, and, reality? Reptilian elite rule the world. So get ready as we're diving headfirst into one of the wildest conspiracy theories ever. Reptilian overlords controlling the world. Yep, you read that right. According to believers, our world leaders aren't just power-hungry politicians. They're actual shape-shifting lizard people from outer space. Makes traffic tickets feel a little less important, huh? This whole idea took off thanks to David Icke, a former sports broadcaster turned full-time conspiracy theorist. In his 1999 book, The Biggest Secret, Icke claimed that a race of blood-drinking interdimensional reptilians originated from the Draco constellation have infiltrated the highest levels of human society, and we're talking everywhere. The British royal family, the Bushes, the Rothschilds, apparently even your annoying boss might be one. But where did this bizarre idea start? Well, fiction writer Robert E. Howard, the guy behind Conan the Barbarian, wrote about serpent-like beings back in 1929. Then, over the decades, sci-fi, ancient alien theories, and some very creative interpretations of history kept the idea alive. Eventually, it landed in the conspiracy scene, where Icke took it full throttle. Now, there have been hints of reptilian infiltration in politics. Canada's Ernie Eves called his opponent an evil reptilian kitten eater from another planet. Was it a joke or a slip-up? Comedian Louis C.K. even grilled Donald Rumsfeld on air, straight up asking if he was a lizard person. Rumsfeld dodged the question. Suspicious. So are we ruled by cold-blooded alien lizards? Probably not. But if your neighbor never blinks and has a thing for sunbathing, just saying. JFK assassination cover-up. So let's look into one of history's most tangled webs. The JFK assassination. This thing has sparked more theories than a room full of conspiracy theorists on an all-night caffeine binge. And trust me, it's wild. First up, the Warren Commission. Those brave souls who concluded that Lee Harvey Oswald was a lone gunman. Yeah, okay. But then we've got eyewitnesses talking about smoke from the grassy knoll, evidence that may have been mysteriously altered, and a staggering number of key figures who just happened to meet an untimely demise. Sounds more like the plot of a spy thriller than real life. And let's talk about the magic bullet. This little guy supposedly traveled through multiple people, changed directions midair, and still looked pristine afterward. Either they've got the most acrobatic bullet in history, or something's fishy. Then there's Zapruder Film, the holy grail of JFK footage. This home movie has been analyzed, dissected, and scrutinized more than a suspect in a bad cop drama. Some say it proves a second shooter, while others argue it's just blurry footage of a tragic day. Either way, it's aged like a fine conspiracy. Oh, and let's not forget the government documents. Some kept classified for decades. Every time a new batch gets declassified, it feels like the government saying, oh, you wanted the truth? Here's a redacted mess of half answers. So was it the CIA? The Mafia? Castro? Aliens? Okay, maybe not aliens. Yeah, whatever the case, this mystery has more twists than a pretzel factory, and we're all just along for the ride. HAARP controls the weather. Now, let's peep into one of the wildest weather conspiracies out there. HAARP, the supposed weather-controlling death ray from Alaska. Spoiler alert, it's about as real as a unicorn with a PhD in meteorology. The High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, HAARP, was built in 1993 by the US Air Force and Navy to study the ionosphere. Sounds boring, right? But conspiracy theorists decided to spice things up by claiming HAARP is actually a top-secret weather manipulation device. Hurricanes? HAARP. Earthquakes? HAARP. Your bad hair day? Definitely HAARP. The latest theory, that HAARP is using radio waves to vibrate metal particles sprayed into the air by airplanes, chemtrails, to control the weather. Science, however, has one tiny issue with this. It's complete nonsense. Experts explain that HAARP signals only interact with the ionosphere, which is way up there, starting at about 37 miles and going up to 310 miles. Meanwhile, all the weather we experience happens way down here, in the troposphere and stratosphere, 0 to 9 miles. That's like trying to cook a pizza in your neighbor's oven, in another country. The amount of energy HAARP produces is minuscule compared to the sun's heating of the Earth's surface. So unless HAARP has secretly unlocked wizard-level physics to transfer energy across atmospheric layers in a way science says is impossible, the weather remains wild and free. So next time someone blames HAARP for a storm, just remember, it's about as responsible for the weather as your Wi-Fi router is for world hunger. Paul McCartney replaced. Alright folks, grab your tinfoil hats because we're about to unravel one of the most bizarre conspiracy theories in music history. Paul is dead. Yep, according to some wildly enthusiastic fans, Paul McCartney died in 1966 and was secretly replaced by a lookalike. And the best part? The Beatles supposedly left hidden messages in their music and album covers to clue us in. Because, of course, that's how you handle a tragic cover-up, by turning it into a cryptic scavenger hunt. So the story goes like this. Paul gets into a mysterious car crash, doesn't make it, and rather than telling the world, the British government and MI5 decide, hey, let's just swap him out. Enter William Campbell, or Billy Shears depending on your flavor of crazy. This perfect Paul doppelganger not only looked the part, but apparently sang, played bass, and wrote legendary songs just as well. Talk about a job replacement nightmare. Now, the so-called clues, oh, they're next level bonkers. Play Revolution 9 backward, and you hear Turn Me On, Dead Man. The Abbey Road cover, clearly a funeral procession. John in white as a preacher, Ringo in black as a mourner, Paul barefoot because ghosts don't wear shoes, and George as a gravedigger. And let's not forget the Volkswagen Beetle license plate, 28IF, meaning Paul would have been 28 if he had survived. And the best part, Paul himself was like, guys, I'm literally right here. But did that stop the madness? No. If anything, Beatles record sales exploded, proving one thing, nothing sells like a good conspiracy theory. The Titanic sunk on purpose. Ah, the Titanic, the unsinkable ship that, well, sank. But why accept the simple, boring truth of an iceberg when you can dive headfirst into some of the wildest conspiracy theories ever? Buckle up, because things are about to get weird. Some say millionaire banker JP Morgan planned the whole thing to take out his rivals, Jacob Astor, Isidor Straus, and Benjamin Guggenheim, because they opposed the Federal Reserve. Morgan was supposed to be on the Titanic, but conveniently changed his mind at the last minute. Suspicious? Maybe. But how exactly did he summon an iceberg like some villainous sea wizard? Also, 2 of these men didn't even oppose the Federal Reserve. But hey, don't let the facts ruin a good story. This is the parent trap of ship conspiracies. Some believe the Titanic was actually switched with its damaged twin, the RMS Olympic, for an insurance scam. The problem, the Titanic's insurance wasn't enough to cover the loss, meaning the real scam would be losing money. Plus, switching 2 of the biggest ships in the world without anyone noticing, that's some next level magic trick. Legend has it, a cursed Egyptian mummy was on board, dooming everyone. A Titanic survivor claimed journalist William Stead told this spooky tale just before the ship went down. But fun fact, the supposedly cursed mummy never left the British Museum. Turns out, an actual iceberg is way deadlier than ancient supernatural wrath. Some say the Titanic's hull number, when reflected in a mirror, spelled "No Pope," sparking Catholic outrage and sealing its fate. Problem? No such number existed, and the shipyard only hired Protestants. But sure, blame a non-existent hull number instead of, an iceberg. Chemtrails are poisoning. So let's dive into this wild world of chemtrails, shall we? So, picture this. You're gazing up at the sky. Those familiar white lines left by airplanes, right? Normal contrails, you'd think. But hold on, some folks believe those aren't just water vapor. Oh no, they're convinced it's a sinister plot, a secret spraying of chemicals or biological agents. Now, here's where it gets interesting. These chemtrail believers, they're not just seeing things. They've got theories, weather control, population manipulation, even biological warfare. They've got it all. And naturally, they claim these mysterious trails are causing all sorts of health problems. Think respiratory issues and general unease. But here's the kicker. This scientific community, they're having none of it. They say it's just plain old water condensation, those contrails we all know. But try telling that to a true believer. They'll tell you those normal contrails dissipate quickly while these persist for hours. And the history? Oh, it's a tangled web. It seems this all started after a 1996 Air Force report on weather modification. Suddenly, those innocent sky streaks became a sinister government plot. Internet forums lit up and radio hosts fanned the flames. What's truly fascinating is how these believers interpret evidence. Barrels of water for airplane weight tests, chemtrail spraying systems, a plane dumping fuel for an emergency landing, proof of chemical dispersion. Even Edward Snowden, of all people, had to clarify he found nothing about chemtrails in all his secret data digging. Imagine the disappointment. Walt Disney's frozen head. Now, we all know Disney for bringing us Mickey Mouse, Snow White, and that one theme park where adults mysteriously turn into kids again. But what if I told you some people believe that instead of resting in peace, Disney is chilling literally in a secret underground cryolab waiting for his grand comeback? Here's where it gets wild. Disney was obsessed with the future. He wasn't just making cartoons. He was out there designing theme parks, animatronic presidents, and futuristic utopias. In 1964, he took over the New York's World Fair with attractions that screamed Tomorrowland IRL. And just when he was on top of the world, bam, 2 years later, in 1966, he died of lung cancer. Now, this is where conspiracy theorists kick into high gear. The official story, he was cremated and buried in Forest Lawn Memorial Park, California. The unofficial story, he was secretly frozen and hidden under Disneyland's Pirates of the Caribbean ride, waiting for science to resurrect him like some kind of sci-fi Jesus. But let's be real. If Disney had frozen himself, do you think he'd be under a theme park ride? Nah, he'd be in a vault with a countdown timer and a note that says, "Wake me up when flying cars are real." So is Walt Disney really frozen? Probably not. But the fact that people still believe it, that's the real magic of Disney, making us believe anything is possible.